Hello, everybody. My name is Swamy, and I'm a senior instructor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. I first flipped my class in spring 2014. The first class I flipped was General Chemistry 2, and I also taught it in the flip model in summer 2014. In fall 2014, I flipped General Chemistry 1, and I'm in the process of continuing that flip. Most of my results are from the spring semester. But even before we start talking about the results, I wanted to show you what my classroom is like. Now, many of us think that in order to have a flipped classroom, you need a classroom that is an active learning classroom. Not exactly true. You can make it work even with what you have. So we usually begin my class with a clicker quiz, which goes over what we had gone over in the previous class. And as you can see right here, there's a clicker quiz up there, and my LAs right here are getting ready to hand out the worksheets for the day. The LAs are learning assistants. These are specially trained undergraduates, and they help me facilitate the classroom. And yes, that is actually a calculator. In many cases, we see students working with their cell phones. They're not paying attention, but these are students who are working on the clicker quiz that I've just put up. We have groups, but sometimes on this particular day, there were a lot of people absent. It was a Monday morning, and I just recommend that they work with whoever is around them. So this is a snapshot of what the whole class looks like. And you can see that students are very engaged. There's nobody sleeping, nobody on the phone, and everybody's working on the problem. Now, the other advantage of having the LAs is they can come give you feedback during the class. So in this case, the focus wasn't right, so one of my LAs walked up to me and said, well, they can't see in the back. And this is when they're actually working on the worksheet. So how many LAs can you spot here? So this is Robert, that's Marco, and that's Fernando. So there's 3 LAs in this frame, waiting and ready to spring into action. So this is Fernando helping a student. And this is my other LA, Josie, who walks around with a board to answer some questions. And this student right here was having lots and lots of problems at the beginning of the semester. He just could not understand chemistry. But he got a B on the last exam, and he was very, very thrilled with it. In this picture, you can see Robert helping a student, and the other 2 LAs are watching. When the semester started, the LAs were not getting a lot of questions because the material was so easy. So if a question was asked, the LAs will fall over themselves to answer it. But that's not the case anymore. The material has become sufficiently complicated enough. And as you can see, students do get individual attention in the classroom because this is some pretty complicated material we're dealing with. And the other thing I want to draw your attention to is, I don't know if you have noticed in the pictures, the students are talking to each other and helping each other out. So there's lots of discussions going on in the classroom. In addition to the LAs helping the students are helping each other out. And the most important thing is they are actually engaging with the material, figuring out what they understand, what they don't understand. And one of the things we teach our LAs to do, they have to take a pedagogy seminar, so they're specifically trained. We train them to ask questions. So if somebody asks them a question, they will ask them another question back to lead them to the answer. So you can see that the student has a question, and Robert here is asking another question in return. It's across all departments. Across all departments. Any LA who teaches for the first time as an LA has to take this seminar. No, it's offered, it's actually on the books. It has a different course number for physics, a different course number for chemistry, a different course number for math, but they all essentially go to the same seminar. Now, because it's gotten so large, there are two seminars. One meets on Tuesdays at 4 and one meets on Wednesdays at 4. But the course material is the same. Yes.
Are LA training courses for STEM? LA are like devoted to training STEM disciplines LAs?
They have mostly been training STEM discipline LAs, yes, but the papers have been from different backgrounds. There are papers from there that are non-STEM also, because we look into what schools do in different places. So there is a lot of. I remember reading a paper in there which was a history paper, which was how somebody made a change in a history classroom and brought cooperative learning in there. So the idea is to basically expose them to different kinds of pedagogy. And if you look, this picture is fascinating because if you look, the students are clearly explaining something to the LA instead of it being the other way around. While the rest of them are still working on the problem. And again, here, if you see, she's forcing him to think instead of just giving him the answer. So in my classroom, students have a lot of help. I'm there, 5 LAs are there, and we work on these POGO-based worksheets together. And most importantly, they have each other as resources. And this is the most important thing. I'm not as scary anymore. So at the beginning of the semester, when I showed up, because these are all high school freshmen who've basically coming from high school, freshmen have basically coming from high school, when I showed up to help, they would be like, oh my God, the instructor's here, I'm scared to ask the question. But that's not the case anymore. They are very, very happy to ask me a question. In fact, sometimes they will only want to ask me the question. This is Chem 1, yeah. This is Chem 1. This is this semester. And this is LAs. As you can see, there's 3 LAs in the picture. And then the LAs do end up forming a bond with these students. Yes?
Do the students know ahead of time when they register that this class is flipped? Or do they find out the first day?
This time they found out the first day because I didn't find out until a week before that the class that was it was there were going to be funds to flip the class that I was going to be given LA. So since we didn't know, the students didn't know. But strangely enough, these students have been a lot more accepting of it than my Chem 2 students. My Chem 2 students, I had taught them lecture style in fall 2013. So 2014, the first 2 to 3 weeks were just brutal. They did not want to do flipped class. They only wanted lecture. So it was a very, very tough sell. But with Chem 1, they don't miss lecture. Yes?
How is attendance in the flipped model versus the traditional attendance in your lecture model?
I would say the lecture percentage is probably a little higher because Friday was Halloween and my second class meets from 2 to 3:15. I still had 150 people show up, which really surprised me and my LAs because we thought it would be a lot lower. And most of them showed up, they were in costume, and we still did chemistry. I want you to see if you can spot the LA here. Anybody? Which one? Right. That's Talia right there. What about here? How many LAs can you spot in this picture?
Green shirt, right aisle.
Okay. Okay.
Black shirt, second left aisle.
Okay. There are 3 LAs in this picture. Him you've seen before. These two are new. And they are LAs. This is during a review session for an exam. So the way we used to do the review sessions was we would basically give them a worksheet and then we would work the problems on the board. That's not the way we do review sessions anymore. We give them the worksheet, then we let the LAs loose, and at the end of the session, we'll put up the answer key. And if there are any questions, either me and my colleagues or my LAs will go up to them and help them work on those problems. And here you see these 2 LAs. And the point I want to make here is they're virtually indistinguishable from the students. So these are really peers. These are people that they can associate with. These are people they can associate to an extent of, oh my gosh, these people have gone through the same pain I'm going through now. They were in this class a year ago. Yes.
So how many of your classes, what percentage have the LAs active in the classroom?
I think for General Chemistry 2, I'm the only one, General Chemistry 1 and 2, I'm the only one who has flipped the classroom in this sense.
Oh, that's not what I meant.
But
So-
can I continue? But we do use LAs in all our classes. They're just used differently.
In your classroom, how often did you use the LAs?
Every day. I could not do this without my LAs. The other classes don't use them as often in the classroom. Maybe once a week, maybe once in 2 weeks, depending on what they're doing, depending on whether they're doing lab or ChemPal or what else. But mine, they're there every single day of the week. Yes, Mike?
Are the problems they're working on in class the same problems the non-flipped class would be working out at home, or are you writing special worksheets for this class?
I'm writing special worksheets for them based on the POGIL methodology. I'll talk about the POGIL methodology next.
One other question.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have online lectures to look at, like video lectures to look at outside of class?
Yes, for Chem 1045, for Chem 1046, which was Chemistry 2, I had enough lead time, so I actually recorded the lectures and they were all there. But because I did not have that time in Chem 1, because I only found out a week before, I'm using YouTube lectures and my students don't miss it. They're okay with just having the 5-minute YouTube lectures. In fact, many of them have told me that they would rather not have me drone on for 20 minutes. They're happy watching the 5-minute YouTube lectures. So, whatever works.
I'm thinking actually when I say some, one colleague of mine whose flipped classroom I observed and who teaches a course like yours, which has fairly standard curriculum content in all the universities across the country. And so I said, he has completely flipped the classroom. All of his lectures are Camtasia with the PowerPoints online. And I asked him if he'd ever thought of using the resources that are available at all the other, across the country. So, and that instead of his own lectures, and his feeling was that, no way, because he said, I don't want to appear in my students' eyes as the TA to the person who's giving the online video lectures. So I just was wondering if you could react to that.
Well, my take on that is students are going to go online on YouTube anyways. They're going to search for lectures anyways because they want everything quick. If there's a 5-minute YouTube lecture and you drone on for 20 minutes, they want the same information in 5 minutes. And I have had a lot of students tell me that they would rather watch the 5-minute video than my video. But at the same time, there are people who want only my videos. So my idea is to give them both because they're resources and have them pick. So when I have some time next semester or in the summer, I am going to record the videos for 1045 also. Yes, Sam.
I give them both. I have some of my own record lectures and some YouTube videos. And often they crave more of my own. And I think it's because of the sense that if the professor said it, that it's going to be in the exam. If I heard it in YouTube, that's not important for the exam.
Yeah, but I do make it clear to them that these are not random YouTube videos. These are YouTube videos that I have viewed and I have chosen. So they know that. And most of them are watching the YouTube videos. When I did a quick mid-semester evaluation, I saw that most of them said that they really loved the videos. No, this is the YouTube videos. And yes, they like the YouTube videos also. So here again, there is 4 LAs, and this is towards the tail end of a review session. When most of the people were gone, this were the few stragglers. And at this point, you can see there's a pretty high ratio of student to LA. So these were the people who really needed help, who stayed till the very, very end. So how many LAs can you spot in this picture? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. There's actually 3. That's Jimmy, that's Josie, and that's Talia. So this was just a snapshot of what the classroom looks like with the LAs in there. So let me talk a little bit about the actual pedagogy behind this. So students come in diverse skill sets, and we are a very large commuter school. So the biggest problem I had was that my students were not engaging with the material. Students also possess diverse learning styles, and one of the problems we have with freshmen is that they come from different backgrounds. How much math they know, how much chemistry they know depends on which high school they went to. So you're really dealing with a large variety of students. The advantage of the flipped class is that it allows you to adapt to these various learning styles, which is not possible if you're only lecturing. You have to think of it as active versus passive learning, because not everybody is an auditory learner. Some of them do better when they teach somebody else, or maybe when somebody else teaches it to them on a one-on-one basis. It's not possible for me to do this for every single person, but somebody in their group can be there to help these people. And I also look at it as flipped class is more critical thinking and problem solving versus a lecture, which is basically memorization and demonstration of problem solving. Now, we also need to think about what happens after our students leave the university. These are the top priorities for our students. And if you see memorization, regurgitation, nowhere on here. They want communication, critical thinking, analytical reasoning, knowledge skills applied to real-world settings, analyzing. If you look at all this teamwork, most of these skills are skills that are higher order in Bloom's taxonomy. And that's where we need to be working with in order for our students to do well on the job market. This is another excellent slide because it shows you how people learn. 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, 50% of what they hear, 70% of what they say and write, 90% of what they do. So what we're hoping to do here is get them to do things in class with the hope that they're going to learn a lot more than they did if they were just hearing us drone on. We saw this same slide previously when Julie showed it to us, and you can see that there what they're doing in class is pretty much worse than sleeping. They're not listening, they're not processing, they're just going into kind of a meditative mode or a TV mode, as she called it. And these are the skills that we expect our students to have. Now the question is, how do we go about teaching our students these very skills? Now, as Julie was saying before, many of us actually disregard the fact that foundational knowledge is very necessary. In every subject, foundational knowledge is very necessary because without a foundation, you can't build a building. So students do need these skills. It's just that we may not necessarily have to give it to them in lecture. They can read on their own and get these skills also. So here's how I prepared to flip my classroom. I read lots of articles. I went to 2 POGIL workshops. I'll be talking about what POGIL is in a minute. In summer 2012 and 2013, which my chair was very kind enough to send me to. Several workshops in CAT, which is the Center for Advancement of Teaching. I attended several online webinars. And then I worked with Eric Brew on surveys to be administered at the end of the semester. And during summer 2013, I recorded my lectures because I was still lecturing at that point, and CP 145 had the capacity to record, so I just did course capture. And then CAT had a course design workshop in summer 2013, which helped me redesign the course and set course goals. This changed the way I think completely. Now, before I create an assignment, I will write the learning objectives for the assignment first before I go through and make the whole assignment. It's not about content coverage to me anymore. It's about, okay, what exactly are my students going to learn? What exactly do I expect them to get out of it? Now, what made this flipped classroom possible is the fact that I got a fellowship from the HHMI. And I got a course release, I got LAs, and they put a whole lot of resources at my disposal to make this happen. So these are the objectives of the class. I'm just going to let you quickly read through this. Now, the last two especially were very important to me because one of the things that we want to do is we want to build a community of learners. We want people to help each other, and I did see that in my classroom. The kind of emails I got at the beginning of the semester were, I really can't do this problem. Towards the end of the semester, it went to, I can't do the problem, nobody in my group can do the problem, nobody in the group that sits next to us can do the problem. Here is what we're doing. Tell us what we're doing wrong. So they really understood that they needed external help at that point, try to get it, and when none of them could do it, it was like, okay, let's ask the instructor. So this is the basic layout of my course. I had, for General Chemistry 2, I initially had lectures that were recorded, edited, and posted on Tegrity. Tegrity is a system within McGraw-Hill, within their course shell. I used that. Students didn't like that as much. So after the first exam, I switched to course capture in GL 132, which I edited using Camtasia and then posted to MediaSite. That worked out much better. Michelle helped me with learning how to work Camtasia, and Alex showed me how to post it on MediaSite. Now, they have McGraw-Hill Learn Smart assignments due before class. This is a tutoring program. So how it works is it'll ask them a question, and then it will also ask them to rate their confidence. If they say they're very confident and get the question wrong, it'll ask them another question. So the questions, if they keep getting them wrong, the questions keep becoming simpler and simpler. And if they still continue to get them wrong, it basically says, okay, you need help, so I'm going to bump you back to the textbook. do some reading, and come back. So that's the way the system works. I also posted a practice worksheet with learning objectives. And after class, we have a Connect quiz, which is again a McGraw-Hill product. I have to create the quizzes, but the beauty of this is for a large classroom, these are graded automatically. So that really helps out.
And the worksheet is of your own
Correct. The worksheet was something that I created, and it gets posted on Blackboard. Yes. For the online version, yes. Yes. I think the product Julie was talking about, Learning Catalytics, which comes from Pearson, they also have something like that. Sapling Learning does something like that. I think Wiley also has a product. Most of the textbook publishers should be able to give you something along those lines. Go ahead.
So the challenge I've had is I've looked at all these different publishers, and for what I teach, they just don't. They either don't have anything available in that form, and I had to, like, for 2 of my classes, I went to third parties, but for some of them, I just don't have those resources. The publishers didn't have them, so I'm wondering, how did you look at textbooks that had that, or how did you go about the process?
When we chose the textbook, one of the reasons we chose this textbook was we wanted to make sure we have a good online platform, considering we teach lots of large lectures. So we pretty much looked at all the online products out there and decided that this was one which would best suit our needs. But you may want to talk to a number of, I think Sapling Learning makes some. There's a lot of different publishers who make a lot of different things. Some of them are not even tied to textbooks. Sapling Learning and Top Hat are two of the things that I can think of, but I'm sure there are very many more. So you may want to explore those. And the other choice, of course, would be to do the just-in-time thing that Julie was talking about, because that's just 2 questions. And you could make that work with Blackboard. POGLE is process-oriented guided inquiry learning, and the worksheets I used are not completely POGLE, but like POGLE. And it uses the exploration, interpretation, observation cycle. So students come to class, they get handed a worksheet, and they work with their group on this worksheet in class. And at the end of the worksheet, there's problems they can do on their own time. Now, POGLE is process-oriented guided inquiry learning. It's based on the learning cycle, and it uses exploration, concept invention, and application. So we'll give them a model. So based on the model, we'll ask them a series of questions, so they have to invent the concept themselves, and then they actually apply it. So this allows them to actually construct the knowledge. And this is, very importantly, this is a student-centered strategy, because students work in small groups with LAs, so they actually think about the things instead of just blindly giving it to them. For example, I could have just given them the rules of precipitation. Instead, I gave them a table and made them create their own rules for precipitation. And data indicates that they remembered that better, just because they did the work to create it. And students are fully engaged in the learning process. Now, one of the most important things is they do develop higher order thinking skills. These worksheets actually force them to think. They have to answer a series of questions that do force them to think. And I am able to tie things together that I could not in lecture, which I'm really finding out as I go through Chemistry 1. The other good thing is they are able to develop all these process skills, which will make them very competitive on the job market when they eventually decide to go out there and get a job. But I'm seeing that they're more willing to help each other. They're more willing to work with each other inside class and outside class. Some of them have become really good friends. Yes?
Worksheets and the problems that you use in class, I'm wondering how similar are those to, I'm assuming you have exams in your classes. How similar are they in terms of because you said, higher order thinking, I'm wondering how well they're able to generalize from the types of problems they do in class to the types of something they may need to do on an exam or something.
I tend to put some exam problems on the worksheet because that's what's on the PowerPoint slides, which my colleagues use. Some of the questions are identical, but I think what is different is the fact that I make them go through the process. Instead of just telling them these are the rules, I actually make them figure out what the rules are. So that's where those skills come in handy, and we do some tougher problems too with them. And it's really strange. There's 50% who thinks that the exams are absolutely identical to the worksheets, and there's the other 50% who think that they have nothing to do with the worksheet. So it's kind of, whom do you believe? But the truth of the matter is, we write our exams as common exams. So all faculty who are teaching the course get together, and we write the exams together. So each one gets a certain number of learning objectives to write questions on. So I may have something to do with writing 25% of the questions, but I have no control over what the other 75% is written. Of course, I get to say, oh no, that question is too hard or too easy, but the format of the question is not something that I can control. Yes?
Curious to know if you have noticed that the performance of the students in your class is generally better than the performance of the students in the other classical methods of...
I have, and I'll show you the results in a little bit. So what happens in class? So as soon as they come in, they'll have a short clicker quiz on most days, and then we move on to new content. I'll try to tie it into the old content. And then we're going to go over key concepts very quickly and dive right into the group work. I basically do not lecture. I will go over key concepts maybe in about 5 minutes tops, no more. I try to give frequent pop quizzes, but that's not always possible with 2 large classes. And then we walk around as students are working on the worksheet, answering any questions that they have. And most importantly, I could not do this without my LAs, because 1 person against 200 is hard. But 6 people versus 200, we can make that work. So how's it going so far? In the spring and the summer, CAT came in to do a mid-semester evaluation. They will do that for you in case you don't know. They'll come to you, you get to leave, and they will talk to your students. Yes?
Question. For your POGL activity, your worksheet activity, participation grade?
They get a grade on the clicker. And that's a participation grade. I don't grade them for that. The pop quizzes is where they get the grade.
Thanks.
Because students are more likely to share concerns with a third party than they are with you. However, this time I did 2 mid-semester evaluations by myself because CAT was swamped. And what I did was I said, okay, anonymous survey, put the name, no need to put the names. Just give me what you like, what you don't like, and one thing you want to see changed. And surprise, surprise, the one thing they wanted to go away was Learn Smart. They did not like the fact that they had to be prepared for class. But they did really like the Connect quizzes, which they do after class, and they loved the worksheets and interacting with the LAs. Yes?
I had the same issue with my class, but they dislike Learn Smart, and I think one of the problems is that Learn Smart is very knowledge-based, and the questions are very word by word from the textbook, and it sends them to the textbook, and all they have to do is read and find, and it doesn't really prepare them.
Right.
And I think that is some of the opposition, and also is making me go away from that and maybe go more into what Julie was saying earlier.
Yes, I was looking at that too. Yeah, I was looking at the just-in-time stuff also because I made the exact same observation. And I wanted to do this for a semester or 2 before I started making changes. But yes, you're right. And I did these assessments before they saw the results of the exam. Now, things students like about the class, they really enjoy working with the LAs. And my LAs always stand in the same spot. So they take ownership of the LA. They feel as if they know the LA knows them. And they especially enjoy coming to class and, asking the LA questions because they know that the LA is there to help them in case they get in trouble. They enjoy the worksheets a lot because it walks them through stuff. They enjoy the Connect quizzes, and there's lots of repetition and redundancy in what I do because they cannot afford to forget. Lots of practice worksheets which have been up on Blackboard, and they enjoy the teamwork, which was something that really surprised me. I thought they would hate working in teams, but once we got over the initial hiccups, they really seemed to enjoy it. And many of them commented that they were better prepared for the exams, and it was not as stressful, the fact that they were learning on a regular basis. And there is really a large proportion who do not miss lecture and want this format to continue. So somebody was asking for results. So results from my 1046 class in spring 2014. So this was, a lot of people were skeptical whether this would work. This was the exam that changed everything. My class performed about 8 points higher than the rest of the classes that semester. I think the average in my class was a 68. The next closest average was a 60. And strangely enough, my class also performed better than my own classes in spring 2012 and spring 2013. So if you can see, the average is much higher. This is lecture 1, lecture 2, lecture 3, lecture 4, just based on timings. So this is the flipped class right here, and you can see that the averages were much higher. And the topics on the exam were almost the same. The chapters were almost the same. This is actually a comparison of question by question comparison of most of the questions on the first exam. And you can see that the second section, which is the flipped section, did better on almost all the questions in this slide. And this one, until we get here. And then something happened. What we did realize after closer examination was that most of these questions were from material we went over during the first 3 weeks of class when they just did not want to be part of a flipped class. They just did not want to do the material. And for the first 2 to 3 weeks, me and my LAs were just constantly going like, no, this will work. You have to do this. We're not going back to lecturing. You have to do this. You have to do this. So if you are flipping a class, just be aware that you have to sell it to them. That is very, very important. There has to be buy-in from the students, else it's going to be very frustrating for you and for them. So make sure you do a good job of selling it to your students. And this was the toughest problem on the exam. We called it the Saudi Arabia problem. And as you can see, all classes performed almost the same because this was something that we threw at them that they didn't see coming. Now this is a comparison of similar questions from my classes over the past 3 years. The green bar is the flipped classroom, and you can see that except for one question, which was one of the very first things we did at the beginning of the semester, on almost all the other questions, they've made significant gains. And this is just the Scantron, the number of questions they got right on the Scantron portion. So this is exam 2. Now, I had a pacing problem this time because I was a little behind the rest of the classes, which is why the average dipped a wee bit, not by a lot, by like half a percentage point. But I fixed that, so for exam 3, the flipped class went back up. And these are the final exam averages. Okay, so the final exam questions are kind of similar. So you can see that the flipped class did a lot better than the classes the previous semesters. Now this is very interesting data because when I got in there and I started looking at the number of A's and B's and C's and D's, The flipped class is the one in purple, and you can see that the number of F's is down. The number of D's kind of sort of didn't change, but look at the number of A's. The number of A's are up, B's are up, C's are kind of sort of the same, the C's and D's, but F's are down. This is exam 1. Exam 2, massive increase in A's, B's, C's are the same, D's are down, F's are down. Exam 3, A's went slightly down because that was a hard exam. B's are up, C's are up, again D's and F's are down. And this is the final exam results. Again, A's up, B's are almost the same, C's are up, D's and F's are down. So some of the F's and D's kind of turned into C's, and hopefully some of the C's turned into B's, B's turned into A's. And then this is a comprehensive breakdown of letter grades. You can see number of A's are up, A minuses are up, B pluses are zooming, B's are almost the same, B minus are almost the same, C pluses and C's, there was a decrease in the number of C pluses, decrease in the number of C's, D's, and F's. So increase in A's and B's, and decrease in C's, D's, and F's. So this just shows you increase in A's, increase in B's, C's, D's, F's down, and the number of drops was virtually unchanged, which really surprised me because the minute they heard flipped class, a lot of people just bolted for the door to try and see if they could get into some other section. And this is the end of the semester GPA. Usually it's around 2.2, 2.3, 2.7.
I've never seen anyone show the GPAs for a given set of students enrolled in a course. Are you suggesting that their GPAs are higher because because their grades were better in Chemistry 1046, or are you suggesting that there may be some ricochet effect between the ways that they're learning in Chemistry 1046 and whatever else they're doing in their other courses?
I think this is just the GPAs in my class only. This is not their comprehensive GPAs. This is the number of A's, B's, C's, D's in my class. The GPA of just my course. Yeah, I think.
I thought you were talking about average GPA.
Correct. No, this is just in my course. Just in my course, the number of A's, B's, C's, D's, you can calculate the GPA for your course. Yeah, that's what I did. Yes?
About you mentioned teamwork. Did you assign any groups outside of class that they worked together, or was everything done, the group work was done all in class?
All the group work was done in class, but what I did end up finding out was groups stayed together. They worked together even outside of class.
I think if you would have assigned it on Blackboard and actually constructed groups, they would have.
The first time I did this, I actually spent all the first day assigning groups. I basically, on their syllabus, we had a paper syllabus, I put numbers, and based on their numbers, I put them in groups. So the second time I let them make their own groups, which was kind of sort of successful, but that was the summer semester, and I really didn't. A week after the drop, you have to give a week until the drops come in, and then there's really not enough time to make groups because by that time they'd already formed their own groups. In this class, we're kind of doing a combination of the two, but I think next time I will be making the groups on day 1. So I did a lot of end of the semester surveys, and these are the results from some of them. Now, most of them agreed that there was a greater opportunity to interact with classmates and learning assistants and the instructor. And they loved doing activities in class because they got instant feedback. They knew what they understood, what they didn't understand. And they also enjoyed being able to help other people because I guess it made them feel useful, but they understood. They were confident about the material. They thought that the course was structured to engage active participation, And this was what was very interesting to me. This class has changed my outlook towards the learning process and the role of the student in their own learning. So a majority of them seem to agree with that statement. And look at this. More than 70% of the class agrees that the flipped class style helped me study more regularly and learn the material much better than in a traditional lecture-based classroom. And about 60% said that they became a more independent learner as a result of this class, which is very important.
The source of the survey questions?
I guess some of them were from literature, some of them I made them up based on my learning objectives. So they were a combination. And some of them came from the SALG, which is a student assessment of learning gains, which is a comprehensive survey system. So they were a combination. I had a SALG survey and a Qualtrics survey. Now this is what I thought was very interesting. Enthusiasm in chemistry and related topics. Most of them seem very enthusiastic. And then interest in discussing subject with friends and family. Very enthusiastic. Interest in taking or planning to take additional classes in chemistry. Good gains, most of them. And then gave me the ability to tackle challenges and resolve unfamiliar problems. Again, many of them seem to think that it did. And then most of them had confidence that they understood the material. And look at the confidence that they'll do well in chemistry. And then comfort levels in working with complex ideas. And then did in-class worksheets help with your learning? Most of them were like, yes, that helped. Now, most of them thought that the pace was fine, the instructional approach they liked. Look at this. Did listening to discussions during class help your learning? Most of them thought that it was really helpful. And they understood the importance of participating in these discussions. And just to make sure that they read it, I had a question about, did you enjoy interacting with people on the Facebook page for this class? There was no Facebook page. And most of them were like, what Facebook page? Yes.
How many students took the survey?
There were about 160 students in the class that particular semester when I did this for the first time. I think about 145 completed the survey. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I did offer if they completed these two, I did offer to replace their lowest pop quiz. They got 1 point for doing this survey and 2 points for doing the other survey, which was longer, and that replaced their lowest pop quiz. Which in the large scheme of things means nothing. Oh, sorry, Sean.
So I know that persistence of women in STEM courses is a big concern. Have you analyzed these with a gender break to see whether there were noticeable?
I haven't done that yet. That's on the annual. But I will tell you that I got some amazing emails from my women students, one of which I shared because one of them said, I am proud to be a woman in STEM. I was thinking of leaving STEM, but because of this class, I guess I'm going to stay. So that made my day, my year. I have that email saved in a special place to read on my days when things are not going.
Next to your monitor.
Yes, to read on days that things are not going according to plan. Yes. Now this is results from the class that I am flipping right now. So this is the comparison of exam 1 scores. There was about 2.5 points difference between my class and the next highest class. Now this is the comparison to my own classes and other classes, similar classes in the previous semesters. And you can see that the flipped class is doing better than my own classes in the previous semesters. And again, this is comparing the classes against myself, my old classes. There's an increase in the number of A's, increase in the number of B's. C's almost stay the same, D's almost stay the same, but look at the number of F's. They're down. This is exam 2. The average for my students was 60.5. The rest of the classes have an average of around 55. And my class was the only class that didn't get a curve on this exam. And I went back and checked my records. I have always curved this exam. Always, every single semester. And this is the first time I have not had to curve. And my students were very upset with me that I did not curve. They did not see it the way I did. But yes, they have made good learning gains. So if you see right here, that's why I didn't need to curve. The averages have been around 56, 57. This time it's a 60.5. But with the free response question, a little higher than that. Again, increase in number of A's, slight increase in B's, reduce C's, reduce D's, and F's are again down. Little bit, but not a lot. You can practically say that C's are reduced a little bit, D's practically unchanged, but reduced in F's.
So I'm looking at this percentage of students falling into D's and F's, and unless I'm missing something, you've still got on this exam you still have about 50% of students overall getting D's and F's. Yes. Is that because of the difficulty of exam 2? Yes. Okay.
Exam 2 is the most difficult exam that they take all semester because it has some really hard concepts. So this is the general student frustrations and complaints. Technology. Learn Smart sometimes works, sometimes it crashes. I just started getting emails this morning for people who had waited until the last minute to do the assignment that it apparently didn't change time. So it didn't fall back. So they were really upset. I suggested that they email the Learn Smart people. And then, what do you mean I have to work outside of class? How dare you ask me to do something outside of class? When are you going to start lecturing again? They hate Learn Smart with a passion. And they hate having to study on their own time. And the other problem I personally had with Chem 1046 is that the length of the class is 50 minutes. The students hate that. And you can't get anything done in 50 minutes, especially if you're teaching it in a flipped style. But you got to work with whatever you're given. Now for 1045, again, technology. The same complaints. So let's talk about things to improve. Sometimes I take longer to post answers, so I want to post answers within 48 hours to the extra problems I give them. I want to improve the attendance in class, and I'm thinking about whether to make the clicker quizzes actually worth some points. I want to use more assessments of the formative kind using MetLACE as a resource in class. And I want to have recorded lectures for Chem 1045 next fall, my own lectures. Now, for anybody who wants to flip a classroom, a few tips. Start small. Don't try to flip a whole lecture. Before I flipped the lecture, I actually did a flip of molecular and electronic geometries, which is a small module in General Chemistry 1 last fall. It was only when that went well that I realized I can do this. I mean, at that point, I was already committed into it because I had already accepted the HHMI fellowship. But that gave me a lot of confidence. Know the literature. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Ask somebody who has already done it. They know where to get things. Ask for help. Borrowing is the best. There is a ton of information on the internet. So you don't have to create all your new worksheets from the scratch. Just use something that's up there and see how it goes. Find a mentor. I can't even tell you how important it is. If all they do is they tell you, take some deep breaths, breathe. Leanne Wells was there for me when I was doing this flipped class deal, and I was sometimes just like, I can't do this. So she would talk me down. And don't take on more than you can handle. These are my LAs through the semesters who have helped me. I'd like to thank HHMI, Leanne Wells, Laird Kramer, Eric Brew, who helped me put the surveys together, Dean Rose, who has been very supportive, my chair, David Chatfield, Adrian Traxler, Rocio, Benaventos, Isis Artsy, and Leslie Richardson from CAT, my colleagues Palmer Graves and Joey Lichter, Stephen and Martin, who are the people who helped me with the recording. I was a big pain because I didn't know anything about technology, and they taught me everything I know about course capture. The staff at GL 150, UTS, and FIU Online. Dene Corrector is from Minnesota State University, and she was the one who mentored me when I initially started about the flipped classroom. And Hagit was right here, came here to take some wonderful pictures in my classroom. Thank you.
I'm just wondering, sort of a follow-up to my first question. What if, question to you, question to the group, what if the pre-class activities didn't include recorded lectures, but included readings and other materials, but not lectures? Could the students learn from reading what they're getting by watching lectures on their computer? Would that be possible?
Yes, because there are times when I've gotten so busy and I have just posted the readings and said I will post the lectures in a little bit, and there are times when I've just forgotten about it and nobody reminded me about it until I got to class, and they're like, you never posted the lectures, but they still came prepared because they read.
So related to that, I'm also thinking about the applicability of this for a fully online course where some of this makes clear sense and others of it doesn't. If you're relying more on a textbook and less on videos, how much did you find students needed coaching in how to make sense of the textbook and learn? Like, learning from a textbook is a different skill than watching someone explain something with an animation.
I think it's a lot harder if you're just doing it with a textbook, especially in an online setting. So you may want to explain to students, this is the way you actually read, and this is the way you distill the knowledge from it. Because the way it is in STEM, it's usually only a few sections that we're dealing with. But I'm sure in your field, they have to read large amounts of material. So it may be useful to actually, make an initial video or, work out saying, okay, this is the parts. Let's take this into account. This is how you distill this down. That may be helpful. Teaching students how to work.
Yeah. Quick question to follow up your question regarding what are the main challenges of incorporating this into an online setting?
I think one of the biggest things with an online setting is you can't have that one-on-one feeling that you have while you're in class. You can fix whatever problems you have with the students. That is going to be your biggest challenge. How are you going to get around that? You can still create teams online. You can have students work, but it's going to be hard for you to get everybody there at the same time and work with people. But I'm sure if your class only has 24 people, it can be done. There are ways around it. You can use Adobe Connect and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uma, for such a wonderful presentation.